Fear makes you react. The first time I called the police, I already knew they wouldn't help. Not because I didn't believe in them, not because I thought they didn't care, but because nothing I was about to describe sounded like a crime. There was no broken window, no forced door, no weapon, no screaming voice on the other end of the line. Just a presence, and the kind of fear you can't prove. It was October of 2021, and I had been living alone for exactly 43 days. I remember that number clearly, because I had marked it on my calendar earlier that evening, half joking to myself. 43 days without roommates. 43 days without noise. 43 days without anyone else breathing in the house, while I slept. At first, the quiet had felt peaceful, healing even. I had moved into the townhouse right after a breakup that left me hollowed out in ways I didn't know how to explain. 7 years with someone, gone in a single conversation that ended with both of us staring at the floor instead of each other. I wanted silence. I wanted routine. I wanted to disappear for a while. The townhouse was perfect for that. It sat at the end of a short cul-de-sac in southern Illinois, surrounded by identical units that all looked like they had been copied and pasted from the same template. Beige siding, small porches, narrow driveways. Nothing memorable. That should have been comforting. Most of my neighbors were older couples or young families, people who waved politely and minded their business. I didn't try to make friends. I didn't want to explain myself to anyone. I worked late, managing inventory at a distribution center just off the highway. 10 to 12-hour shifts were normal. I usually pulled into my driveway around 9:30 or 10 at night, too tired to notice much beyond getting inside and locking the door. That's probably why it took me a week to notice him. He lived 3 doors down, tall, broad, always outside at night. The first time I saw him, I thought nothing of it. He was standing at the edge of his driveway, smoking, facing the street. I nodded instinctively. He didn't respond. The second time, he was leaning against the porch railing, arms folded, head tilted slightly to one side, watching. By the 5th time, I realized something was wrong. He never moved. Not in the casual way people shift their weight or check their phone, not even to flick ash from his cigarette. He just stood there, perfectly still, like a mannequin someone had forgotten to put away. Sometimes he was smoking. Sometimes his hands were empty. Sometimes he was just there. Every night I came home late, he was outside, and he was always looking directly at me. I mentioned it once to my mom over the phone. She laughed it off, said some people just liked the night air. A friend joked that maybe he was security or had insomnia. I tried to believe that. But insomnia doesn't make someone stand motionless in the dark, staring at nothing but a single house. I started double-checking my locks. That was when the noises began. The first one woke me up at exactly 2:37 a.m. I know the time because I checked my phone immediately, my heart already pounding before my brain had fully caught up. It sounded like metal scraping against wood, slow, deliberate, controlled. My bedroom was on the first floor at the back of the unit. A sliding glass door separated it from a small fenced backyard filled with decorative gravel instead of grass. At first, I thought maybe I had dreamed it. Then, it happened again. A long creak, like someone gently opening a gate that didn't want to open. I sat up in bed, every muscle tight. Then came the footsteps. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Too heavy to be an animal. Too slow to be accidental. I slid out of bed and grabbed my phone. The only thing I had for protection was a dull kitchen knife I kept in my nightstand, something I had bought as a joke when I first moved in. It didn't feel funny now. I crouched near the blinds and peeked through a narrow gap. Nothing. The motion light was off. That meant whoever it was either hadn't triggered it yet, or knew how to avoid it. I called 911 with my thumb hovering over the screen, whispering my address like I was afraid someone could hear me through the phone. The dispatcher was calm, almost bored. Officers were on the way. I stayed crouched in the dark, listening to every sound, counting my breaths. 10 minutes later, red and blue lights washed over the front of the house. The officers were polite but detached. One walked around the back while the other asked questions, scribbling notes without really looking at me. No open gate, no footprints, no damage. Probably a raccoon, one of them said. He didn't even try to hide the look on his face. They left, and the silence came back heavier than before. The next morning I found the rock. It was wedged under the backyard gate, placed just right to keep it from closing all the way. Subtle enough that I could have missed it if I wasn't looking. That was when the fear changed, because animals don't plan, and they don't come back at the same time every night. 2 nights later, at 2:14 a.m., someone tried the handle on my back door, slowly, testing it, feeling for resistance. I didn't scream. I didn't move. I just listened as the handle rattled softly, then harder, like whoever was on the other side was getting impatient. I called the police again. This time, there were footprints in the gravel, big ones, leading straight to my door. Still, no crime. Still nothing they could do. That was the night I installed the cameras. And that was the night I finally understood something that makes my stomach turn, even now. He wasn't trying to break in. He was teaching me a schedule. After the night someone tried my back door handle, I stopped thinking in terms of fear and started thinking in terms of patterns. Fear is loud. Patterns are quiet. Patterns make you realize you were never in control to begin with. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the couch with every light off, the glow from my phone the only thing illuminating the living room. I had positioned myself where I could see both the front door and the hallway leading to the bedroom, knife resting uselessly on the cushion beside me. The cameras arrived the next afternoon. Nothing fancy. 2 mid-range Wi-Fi security cameras from a big box store. One went above the back door, angled slightly downward to catch the gate and the gravel. The other I mounted over the front porch, facing the driveway and street. I checked the feeds obsessively, every shadow, every passing car, every flicker of light. That first night, nothing happened. 2:14 a.m. came and went. 2:37 a.m. passed without a sound. I told myself it was over, that whoever it was had gotten scared off by the police, even though I knew that wasn't true. People like that don't scare easily. At 2:23 a.m., my phone vibrated. Backyard camera. I didn't even breathe as I opened the notification. At first, all I saw was darkness. Then, movement at the edge of the frame. The gate swung inward just enough to slip through, not enough to make noise. A man stepped into view. He was tall, broad shoulders, long arms that hung loose at his sides. He wore a black hoodie with the hood pulled up, gloves on his hands even though it wasn't that cold yet. He moved like he had rehearsed this. Every step avoided the loose gravel. Every pause happened just outside the motion sensor's full range. It was only when he reached the door that the camera fully activated. He stopped, slowly lifted his head, and looked directly into the lens. I felt it in my chest before I fully registered what I was seeing. He smiled. Not wide, not exaggerated. Just enough to show he knew he was being watched. Then he raised one gloved hand and gently rested it against the glass of the door. No knocking, no force, just contact. He stood there for a long time, long enough for me to realize he wasn't looking at the house. He was looking at me. When he finally stepped back, he didn't turn around right away. He backed away slowly, never breaking eye contact with the camera, until he disappeared into the darkness beyond the fence. I called the police again. This time, they watched the footage. They admitted it was unsettling. They admitted it was strange. But again, there was nothing they could do. No weapon visible, no forced entry, no damage. One of them suggested motion lights. Another suggested a dog. Neither suggested finding him. They wouldn't even knock on doors to ask about security cameras. When I asked them to at least talk to the man 3 doors down, the one who was always outside at night, they exchanged a look and shook their heads. No probable cause. Their hands were tied. That night, I didn't stay in the house. I packed a bag and checked into a cheap hotel off the highway, leaving every light on behind me like that might somehow protect the empty space I'd been sleeping in. When I came back the next morning, I found the handprints. 4 of them. Too high on the glass. Too low. Like someone had crouched down, pressed their hands flat, and leaned in close. I didn't clean them right away. I just stood there, staring, trying to imagine how long he'd been standing there after I left. Trying not to imagine him realizing I was gone. I broke my lease a week later. Lost my deposit. Didn't argue. On the last day, as I was loading my car, I checked the mailbox one final time out of habit. That's where I found the note, plain-lined paper, torn from a notebook, handwritten in tight, careful letters. The cops leave, but I don't. I filed one last report. The officer who took it didn't joke this time. He didn't dismiss me. He promised patrols, promised follow-ups. None of that mattered. I never went back. A month later, I got a message on Facebook from a woman named Kayla. She said she had just moved into my old unit. She asked if I had ever noticed someone in a black hoodie hanging around the backyard. She said she'd been hearing footsteps at night. She said someone knocked on the glass door around 2 a.m. and just stood there. I didn't reply, because by then, I had already learned the worst part. This wasn't about me. I was just part of a cycle, and cycles don't stop on their own.